Sports in this January 11th, 2024 episode. I appreciate you joining us, and we have a fantastic episode on the docket for you today. It was the first January 11th, 2024. It is the first day we have not had Nick Saban manning the head football coaching dash chair, whatever you want to call it, at the University of Alabama. Last time this happened was January 2nd of 2007 because he was hired on January 3rd. It's a big one. It's a big day, big couple days in college football, or big 24 hours, I should say. This is the first episode we've done, anyone's done, where Nick Saban has not been the head coach at Alabama. It's just hard to believe. Obviously, we're going to discuss who the next guy will be. We'll also hear from former Alabama player Matt Hereford to join us to discuss his time at Alabama, what Nick Saban meant to him. He was there from 2007, 2019, does a phenomenal job. LSU still has an OC hire as well to come. They also they hired a defense coordinator in Blake Baker and defensive line coach Bo Davis. Two phenomenal hires for Brian Kelly, 2 for 2 on that, in my opinion. Then the contact period starts back up at midnight tonight. I mean, if you're an Alabama fan, you're a little worried that the Kirby Smarts, Lane Kiffins of the world are going to be in Tuscaloosa talking to your players. It's fair. It's going to happen, though. But I heard Alabama had a players-only meeting where some of the guys rallied the troops, told them, hey, let's figure out who's going to be our coach, and let's wait. Let's all kind of give a gentleman's agreement. No one's going to do anything until we find out who the head coach is. And then we'll discuss this upcoming weekend's action in basketball. We got 2 games a week through, some 2-0 teams, some 1-1, 0-2. We'll review this week's midweek action. We'll preview this upcoming week's action as well. But let me get that link. We can get it right off the bat. Let me share it over to Mac. We will get that over to him and shoot it over, and we will get him rocking and rolling. But this should be a great episode, guys. It's crazy to say that Nick Saban is not the head coach at the University of Alabama. That is crazy. It's hard to imagine. I mean, the first episode, and again, if you missed this, we're back. We are back. Oh, Cisco. What's up, Cisco? Cisco, how's the women's hoops game over there at the pavilion? But also, it's crazy to think we're back at the home court. You can tell we're at the studio. We're at the in-laws for a bit. But we're back on the home court, on our home field, where we're at, where we're comfortable. We got a pretty good episode here. Again, we're going to talk, obviously, Nick Saban, the legacy he left, not only at Alabama, but the sport, the future of the sport, just overall, an ambassador, great coach, great leader of men. We'll talk about what's next, who Alabama should hire, who do I think they end up hiring. Then obviously we'll talk about college basketball, the week it was. We mentioned it as we wait to get Mac on here. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties right off the bat. Again, getting back from where we were at the in-laws, getting that figured out. So we're back, ready for action. Just had some technical difficulties right off the bat, waiting for Mac to get on here. He's going to join us here just shortly. But God, man, Nick Saban, not the head coach. Again, like I mentioned, I can remember where I was the day Nick Saban took the job on January 3rd, 2007. I can remember I remember sneaking out, pretending I had to go use the bathroom. At our high school, we had bathroom passes, randomly enough. But I was out teaching, but I didn't know what I was doing. Monitoring. I remember you had that just massive melee that was the airport of everybody greeting Nick Saban coming. I mean, you knew it was going to be a big-time hire. You knew there was going to be massive success. You didn't know the extent, though, 17 years later. 6 national championships, 9 SEC Western Division titles, multiple SEC championships. You just didn't see – you knew it would happen, but you didn't know it would be to the extent that it was. You just – and anybody who would tell you that they did, I think's lying a little bit. Just making sure Matt can get on here. But again, I mean, crazy. January 11th, 2024. He probably went 8 years longer than a lot of people really thought. Remember, the initial thought for Nick Saban initially was that he doesn't stay anywhere long. Look at Michigan State. Look at LSU. Look at the Dolphins. He'll be a mercenary 3 to 4 years, and he's out. And he's out. That's what a lot of people thought. Nobody thought he would make a home 17 years in the making. You didn't. No one did, I don't think. But before Matt gets on, we'll roll into the Nick Saban conversation. Like I said, he officially hung it up at Alabama. Never thought you would see the day. It was a day you always remember where you were when he retired. It's just the way it was. You always remember where you were when Nick Saban retired. Like I said, hell, I remember where I was when I got hired. I was a junior in high school, or when he retired, or when he got hired. I was a junior in high school, January 3rd, 2007. Like I mentioned, use the bathroom pass, check in the library, see all the stuff. Remember, it could have been Rich Rod, but he turned him down. That was the rumor. Then it was Nick Saban. Everybody knew it would be a fantastic hire. I remember I was going to the Sugar Bowl that day. The LSU Notre Dame Sugar Bowl in 07. Les Miles, Charlie Weiss. You had Jamarcus Russell's last game facing Brady Quinn, Jeff Samardzija, and them. LSU won the game, but you even felt like the buzz in New Orleans. Because remember, obviously, Nick Saban was at LSU. You remember the buzz that night in the Superdome was just LSU fans were they ended up the next year winning the national championship. But you kind of felt like LSU fans were a little uneasy when that happened. Like, oh, shoot. Our guy, if he'd have stuck with us, would have won. We'd be on our second national championship, probably, and he's going to our rival. And again, Alabama and LSU were always rivals, but it was obviously amped up a bit when you added Nick Saban in there going to Alabama. I mean, you did. I mean, just naturally, that's what happened. It was a day that changed college football forever, but I don't even think we realized the impact that it was. Like I mentioned, 17 years later, you would not have imagined the success. It became normal. It became normal. It was Tiger Woods-like. He was like, man, we expect this guy to play like a freak show. I mean, he was like, yeah, double-double, triple-double every night for a basketball player. Or, yeah, he went 8 1/3. 7 innings of a bad night for him. You expected it. The guy went 16 straight seasons with double-digit wins. I mean, just the statistics are baffling. The guy was more than a football coach. He was an ambassador to the university, a teacher of men, and an advocate for the sport. The guy should probably be the football commissioner when they name one. He really should. I know Josh Pate always advocates for himself, but it's Nick Saban. I say that because the guy wouldn't just be successful as a football coach. We honestly probably wasted the guy's best talents on a sport. If we're being completely honest, we probably had talents on a sport. But Matt Hereford joining us right now. Let's get him on. Mac, what's up, baby?
Nothing much. How we doing?
Good, man. I appreciate you hopping on with us. I know we had some technical difficulties in mind at first. Appreciate the patience, brother.
Oh, 100%. I appreciate y'all.
So how's everything going over there? So first of all, tell us, I opened up the show by starting and saying it's one of those days you remember where you were. Just like I remember, like I was mentioning, I was a junior in high school when we found out on January 3rd, 2007, he was taking over. And I remember going to the Sugar Bowl that night, LSU, Notre Dame. And you could feel the buzz in New Orleans, and LSU fans were kind of like, oh, crap. Even in their win. It was kind of like, again, I wasn't alive, neither were you, when JFK got assassinated, 9/11. And those are tragedies. So I'm not trying to compare it to that. But it's just one of those days you remember where you were. When Elvis died, you just remember where you were when this happened. What were you doing yesterday, Mac?
It's funny. So I was just in my house, just got back from a workout, and I remember vividly one of my friends I live in Nashville, so I was in Nashville, Tennessee. One of my buddies who lives in Nashville, huge Tennessee Volunteers fan, reached out to me and said, Mac, Coach Saban's retiring. And I started laughing, and I was like, no, like, buddy, it's a joke. He's like, no, I'm serious. I'm seeing stuff. And I'm like, it's got to be some kind of prank, like, no official pages to post or whatnot.
Yeah.
5 minutes later, ESPN notification comes up, bang, Coach Saban's retiring. And I was like, holy shit. It was my first reaction. And then I would say from that, I still, even yesterday, today, like I was talking to some people, I felt just like, wow, like it's hard to comprehend, everyone, I'll tell people, everyone knew it was coming, just no one knew when it would come. And I don't think anyone expected it to be after this season. And so it was pretty wild. I'm still trying to digest the whole entire thing. But at the end of the day, and my first initial reaction when I really understood that it happened was, look, I was grateful. I'm just happy, extremely happy that I was a part of a program or, under the time that Coach Saban coached and got to experience him, whether it be back from 2007 when I went to his first camp at Nick Saban football camp, to all the way to the day that I ended my career at Alabama. And then till now, I've always respected, and he's the GOAT of college football. So it's a pretty wild thing. And I'm just grateful I had a small piece of it.
So tell us how you got started in Alabama. Obviously a walk-on from Birmingham, right?
Yep. So Birmingham, Alabama. Grew up. I'm a fourth generation at the University of Alabama. So my great grandfather went to Alabama, grandparents, mom, everything like that. So aunts and uncles. But all that to say, grew up bleeding crimson as a kid. Was all I watched was Alabama football. Huge Tide fan when I was younger. And then 2007. So I remember Coach Saban. We hired Coach Saban. I was a little bit young at the time, but I remembered it, and it was like, who is this Coach Saban guy? I didn't really get all the coaching stuff. I didn't get all the situation, but was like, I'm going to go to his first camp because I loved football and I loved Alabama football. Went to his first Nick Saban football camp. Will always remember it. I went with my grandfather, who kept on telling me, he's like, this guy is going to be the guy. And I was like, what is my grandfather now? But my grandfather and my mom took me to that first camp. And I remember meeting Coach Saban on that field at the beginning of the camp. And then immediately after we go, the Nick Saban football camp, it's an incredible experience. But we went to the facility, Malmore facility, and he talks to all of the, people, the kids at the camp, but along with their parents to start the camp. And I just remember him saying stories right then and there, learning from him, and taking everything he said so seriously, whether it was about the process or one of the vivid memories that I have is him talking about Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote of, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper you can be. So all the way from that start in 2007 is when I was like, I'm invested in this process, and I don't even know Coach Saban at the time, following along to years and years after of investing in that process in the high school level, and and then ending up getting a preferred walk-on opportunity at Alabama to getting to go there. So it was pretty awesome.
Mentioning that, tell me what is the most vivid, probably best memory of Nick Saban during your time in 17 through 19, correct? You were there from 17 through 19?
2016 to
2016. So you were there for 2 national championship games, or 3 national championship games, and then the 19 season for the Citrus Bowl, right?
Yep, the Citrus Bowl. We don't talk about that too much. But yeah, so I would say there's a lot of them that come to mind. And I mean, whether it be him ripping into me on, because I didn't have my knee pads low enough, or another buddy of mine one time, we were on the scout team and we get shown cards. And just a funny story that my buddy, sometimes the scout team cards, so during the week we had to prepare, for whoever it may be. So say it was Clemson, we would have it, the scout team would be a science. So we would have a guy who is going to be like Hunter Renfrow. We have a guy who's going to be like their other receiver. We have a guy who's going to be like Deshaun Watson, whatever it may be. Well, this one week we'd prepared and stuff. And sometimes the scout team cards are wrong. And what's crazy is that they go through all, we study film and go through the other team's film, whatever, as we're watching and seeing what they've done in the past. And so we get these scout team cards, and one of my buddies is a tight end, did the play exactly how it came on the card, but Coach Saban had studied the film more than the cards, so these cards, again, are the plays like we're supposed to prepare for the team coming up, but Coach Saban knows it better than we even have on these cards. And one of my buddies runs a route, and Coach Saban says, that's not the right play. So someone who made the card mixed it up, and my buddy who's on the scout team did exactly what he was told, but Coach Saban thought he didn't follow the scout team card. Went over there to him and was like, man, you don't even know, you can't even read the card. Like, did you even watch cartoons growing up? You need to get the hell off the field, all this stuff, just ripping into him. So a lot of those stories are pretty memorable. But for me personally, probably the time that I met with Coach Saban, I wanted to be on the leadership committee, or thought that I would like to, go up to him and talk to him about leadership committee, and went into his office. And, you talk about a guy that we all see in practice every day. I'm a wide receiver, so I start off the practice and we're doing drills against the DB. So we're right next to Coach Saban, but there's just this level of respect and this level of just intensity he brings that going into his office, I'm with this guy every day. I'm with Coach Saban every single day, but there's this feeling of holy cow, like when I'm in the office one-on-one with Coach Saban, you can feel his presence when you walk in that door. And just that day, I couldn't even really remember or tell you what he said to me. It was just the fact of being face-to-face and having a conversation with him one-on-one was really special to me. And then just the jokes he started to get over time, a little bit more jokey with the guys. And, the media sees him as all serious and everything, which he's a very serious and he's all business. But just times when he would loosen up, crack a joke or laugh at something that happened on the team or crack a joke, even a Garrick Dieter story that I've told before where Garrick Dieter transferred from Bowling Green, came to Alabama, scored a great touchdown against USC in his first season with the Tide. And, he was looking at the fans and celebrating with them and pointing up to them. And Coach Saban paused the tape and was like, gee, like Garrick Dieter, like, what are you doing? Like celebrate with your teammates first. You didn't have any Blanken fans at Bowling Green. So it's stories like that will live and I'll cherish forever. And then, the pregame talks, the halftime talks, the team meetings, every single chance and every single time Coach Saban talked, whether it's after practice, whether it's, just to the guys in general, something important was said and there was a message that was put out there. And, I'll never forget those times.
And Mac, you were in the locker room, for the 18 national championship 17 season, right? When he made the change from Jalen Hurts to Tua Tagovailoa, were you around? What was kind of the vibe in the locker room from a standpoint of, was the team kind of like, did it give some more, obviously on the field, it showed there was some momentum change there. Did you kind of feel that in the locker room when they made that change?
Yeah, so I can't remember. People have talked to me about it's obviously 4th and 26. Unbelievable play, unbelievable game. I can't really even go back to the feeling that I had. I guess post coming out of the locker room when we realized Tua was really going to start, I just was like, holy heck, what is going on? This is crazy. We're literally taking out a guy who his freshman year took us to the SEC championship, took us to the national championship, had unbelievable accolades and awards, and was an incredible quarterback, as shown now is in the league, is dominating as well, doing well. And you put in a guy who hardly has had any college snaps. I remember myself thinking, like, there's no one who would do this or know to do this or have the thought process to do this except for Coach Saban. He always had a way. He always could outcoach almost anyone and everyone. And the second half preparation was just incredible. But that game in particular, I remember coming out of the sidelines and thinking, holy cow, like this is the real deal. We're really about to put Tua in, and made that game call. And then look, it paid off for him and we ended up winning. And I remember watching this year as a graduate, seeing that Auburn game and that last play and thinking like, they're going to pull this out. The Tide is going to do something. Coach Saban's got something up his sleeve. And it's like, to us, it all looks like, holy cow, what a miracle, what an incredible play. It's almost luck to a lot of people. But to me, I'm always thinking, Coach Saban's always got something up his sleeve. He's all this makes sense to him.
It's like you said, if you've been in the building, if you worked in the building, like you said, what was the play? Gravedigger, they called it. They kept calling it. Yeah. It's one of those things, like that was prepared. As much as people think that was kind of a miracle play, like obviously players got to go make plays, but you put yourself in the best situation to be prepared in that situation. And I feel like it's like I was saying, I think right when you got on the show, we kind of wasted Nick Saban's talent being a football coach when he could have been doing something probably as crazy as it says, a little bigger. And this is a sports show.
Yeah. He could have been the president of the United States. Who knows? Just the way he operates and the way he does things. I always take it back to you brought up preparation. And that's one of the things that always I was like, there's no one who's more prepared at doing his job than Coach Saban. I mean, he over-prepared. He like, it was just insane. We would go, say we were playing a team like Citadel, who wasn't necessarily one of our teams that was a big rival or big competition. And the player standpoint, we kind of knew, we kind of thought, like guys mostly thought, we're going to go in there and we're going to do our job and this is a game we're probably going to win. But at the same time, Coach Saban could come up with a way to make it seem like he would bring up some stat and say, hey, Citadel's got, the number one rushing per third down attempts or whatever. He's like, we got to watch out for these guys. So he always knew how to motivate us and let us know or make us feel like every team we played against was going to be a challenge. But when we speak on that, say we were playing a team, we would study the film of the special teams coordinator. So Citadel may have a special teams coordinator. We would study the film that special teams coordinator of schools he was at previously. So you go back like 3 or 4 years and he was at, some other school.
Yeah.
We would study that film. We studied everything. And we had plays for every situation. I always thought like, gosh, these playbooks are massive. we don't even use half these plays. What are we doing? It's because we always had something for any situation possible that we'd be able to bring out in any type of game.
Mac, man, I know you got some stuff to do tonight, some things to do tonight. A little technical difficulty early, but dude, I appreciate you taking the time. Crazy we're even having this discussion. I mean, 73 years old. We knew it was coming at some point, but it's just crazy even to talk about. Not really. It's one of those things. It's tough to be sad. You're just glad it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. My whole mindset with the whole thing is, as a person who played at Alabama, an alumni of the university, I'm just, again, thankful, grateful for the fact that Coach Saban, what he did for the sport of college football, what he did for football in general, and, in a lot of the world. I know, again, it's a sports show, but look, he did a lot for a lot of people, and the impact he had just on Tuscaloosa and the environment and the ability to, he opened up charities. He has Nick's Kids. He has all these different foundations he's done that was in the, that people didn't always talk about. He's done a lot for the community, and just thankful and just grateful that I got to play underneath him, and excited for him to finally get like a little bit of a break and enjoy some time with family. And again, I'll never forget things that he said. Like, there was one that always stuck out to me. It's either live with the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment. And we could just go on and on about Coach Saban's sayings, but every single opportunity, getting to learn from him, getting to be underneath him in that system was a privilege and just an unbelievable, awesome opportunity. So I'm excited for him. And, I think there's hope for the University of Alabama as well, looking forward to the next couple of years.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Hereford joining us here, former Alabama football player. Mac, I appreciate you taking the time, brother.
100%, Dave. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Again, guys, Mac Hereford, former Alabama player. Thought I'd bring him on. Well-spoken guy, trying to get his career started. Thought he'd be someone good to come on and discuss his time at Alabama as a player under Nick Saban, the lessons he's learned. Again, crazy to say. Let's be happy it happened. Let's just be fired up that it happened. I mean, a tremendous career by Nick Saban. But before Matt came on, I was talking about just kind of what Nick Saban meant. Like I mentioned, I think we wasted the guy's talent as a football coach, for being honest. The guy could have been a president, a state representative, anything he wanted to do, because all his lessons in football always relate to life too. Like just his waking up and having a goal and not being results oriented, which 98% of us are. I'm guilty of it at times. I think we all are. But a process like, hey, no, we're going to start with step 1, step 2, step 3. If I keep looking at results, I'm going to take these things for granted. You got to love the process. I mean, look at all the greats. I mean, he brought them in to talk to the team before. Kobe Bryant, Nick Saban. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, guys like that. He brings in guys that have the same mindset as him. Just a brilliant person. Again, would have been successful at whatever he did. But I wanted to bring up some things before we move on to talk about who's going to ultimately, someone's got to replace Nick Saban. But I want to go over some things that Nick Saban had an impact on. First of all, obviously the Southeastern Conference in general. Starting back at LSU in 2000, LSU was always a gold mine. I mean, they're the only team in the state. There's so much talent in the state of Louisiana. But Nick Saban took it to the next level. He allowed it to not only hit its ceiling, but stay there. I mean, since Nick Saban, every coach that has been there, except Brian Kelly so far, but Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, all won national championships. He put the blueprint out on how to be successful at LSU, and everybody just follows him. And then obviously when he went to Alabama, he changed the way athletics departments were run, specifically football organizations. He changed the way SEC coaches and football coaches in general were paid and how their staffs were set up. I mean, he started personnel departments. He got it started with guys like Ed Manowitz, who got it started. Tyler Siskey had been running departments. Kevin Steele, Pat Suddes. He understood that, hey, we got to have a personnel department like I had in the NFL, but somehow marriage it where it works in the college game, like early identification of players. He started that. That's why there's so many support staffs in college football, or big support staffs across college football now. He changed that. That was Nick Saban. These staffs now in college football were not as big as they were before Nick Saban. These analysts, all these teams having 1 million analysts on staff, GAs. Somebody that was Nick Saban at start GAs, but he started the big support staff members of, hey, you be working on the advanced scouting of Tennessee, even though we play them in 2 weeks. Just using an example. Nick Saban started that. Always ahead of the time. also so willing to adapt to the times. Like he did, just always adapting. Obviously, he has an ego, but he would bring on former head coaches who he maybe could have been like, you know what, I don't want this guy's ideas because I'm the smartest guy in the room. Again, I worked in college football for 10 years. There's a lot of guys that say they're not yes men. There's a lot of guys that say they're not yes men, but they want a lot of guys who agree with them. I've worked with a few of them. Nick Saban's not like that. He wants guys, you may tell him something he doesn't want to hear and he gets pissed off, but he respects you for it. He respects you for it. I mean, he changed rules. I mean, he got rule changes from that standpoint. Remember, the offensive lineman couldn't go with the offensive lineman couldn't be more than 3 yards down the field. The hurry up, no huddle offense. He got defenses to be able to refs to stand over the football and let defensive teams substitute. He did. I mean, he did stuff like that. Like I said, he changed the coaching salaries. Coaches weren't getting paid like that. He changed timelines for coaches. I mean, there have been 5 different Auburn coaches during a 17-year period. There were 6 different coaches at Tennessee. Those are your 2 biggest rivals at Alabama. Those were your 2 biggest rivals, and combined, there were 11 different coaches in a 17-year period at both those schools, or combined at both those schools. 5 at Auburn, 6 at Tennessee. Mark Richt probably wins a national championship at Georgia if Nick Saban's never at Alabama, and probably retires at Georgia. There's no Kirby Smart. You could also make the case for Les Miles. He may not get fired at LSU. Nick Saban was ultimately his doing in. I mentioned earlier the rule changes, the hurry up, no huddle offense. Got a little ahead of myself there, but the hurry up, no huddle offense, he adapted. Nick Saban hired Lane Kiffin. I mean, Nick Saban would love to get under center like the Jim McElwain days and, hey, ball control. If we win the rushing game, stop the run the football, we're going to win the game. He knew, we got to start scoring a little bit. So he hired Nick Saban, hired Steve Sarkisian, guys like that to help him advance the game. He changed the way you viewed the sport of college football. I mean, he made Paul Feinbaum's career. I heard Paul Feinbaum on ESPN yesterday talking about how, if Nick Saban ever comes to Alabama, I'm probably not on ESPN. I'm still on AM radio. I mean, he affected people's lives that he wasn't even intentionally doing it just by the way he conducts himself day to day. He was that great at his job. And again, I'm going to keep saying it. We wasted his talent as a football coach. The guy changed the sport as we knew it. He was the face of the sport for 15 years. Now, from a University of Alabama standpoint, just the school, he changed the school's entire landscape in the city of Tuscaloosa, if you want to be honest. Here's a stat. Since Saban's arrival, Tuscaloosa's population has increased by more than 10,000 people per 2022. Tuscaloosa County as a whole has seen an increase of over 40,000 people. It's a simple formula, really. Winning produces infrastructure. It's more than paid off on both ends for the city and university. Along with all those national championships, Alabama set athletics revenue records years ago, and the university enrollment has increased 51% since Nick Saban arrived in 2007. That's unbelievable. I mean, what was it? Back in 2013 when they did some 60-minute doc on him, it was the university president at the time. Who was it? The University of Alabama's president initially at the time. I forget. Sorry, escapes my mind real fast. But remember, he said, "Yeah, Nick Saban makes $8 million a year," and he's like, "Oh, he's severely underpaid." Nick Saban was severely underpaid yesterday, his last day at work. When you factor in all the tuition, all the enrollment, all the money brought into the city of Tuscaloosa, the state of Alabama, between changing the sport of college football, being the face of it, and helping the University of Alabama, the city of Tuscaloosa, and the state of Alabama, it's unbelievable what the state, school, the sport of college football is forever indebted to this man, Nick Saban. They are. It is what it is. Never really thought, just talking about it now, that we would be talking about him retired. And I know you see some stuff outside his statue at Bryant-Denny, people putting flowers, oatmeal cream pies, whatever. It's like the guy died, but he didn't. It's a little excessive and stuff like that. But again, the guy had a major impact. He's the greatest college football coach of all time, with the greatest maybe college coach of all time. I mean, you're up there with John Wooden, but in my lifetime, probably the 3 biggest college sports icons in my lifetime. I'm just going to go with the big three sports here: football, basketball, baseball. Nick Saban in football, Skip Bertman in baseball at LSU, and Mike Krzyzewski in basketball at Duke in my lifetime. But man, what an impact, what a career Nick Saban had. He's still going to be around the building. Apparently, he's going to get an office at Bryant-Denny Stadium. He's going to be around. He's not leaving Tuscaloosa, so that's good. Still wants to be around. He's still going to be managing Nick's kids that him and his wife, Miss Terry, have done a phenomenal job managing. But again, the impact he had on this sport. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough time in this show. And then the city of Tuscaloosa, the school. Remember when I got to Alabama, there's a lot of really Georgia, Alabama, and like Mississippi kind of, some Tennessee kids. Now it's the enrollment from the state of Texas and California is through the roof because people are like, man, if I can't get into one of my in-state schools in California or can't get into Texas A&M or Texas from an academic standpoint, Alabama's an SEC school, and man, they're damn good. They got a big brand. I want to go be a part of that, have that college experience. That's Nick Saban. Unbelievable. Underpaid. It's tough to say when a guy makes $10 million a year he's underpaid, but he was. But we got to move on. We got to move on into the future. What does that mean for Alabama? What is next? And as of now, Dan Lanning, he's going to stay in Eugene. And I don't really blame him. Let's say this. It is going to be a very tough job to take over for Nick Saban. Now, people are going to be like, well, Ray Perkins couldn't get it done when he took over for Bear Bryant. Well, things are different now. Bear Bryant kind of just turned it over. The facilities were bad at Alabama. That's not saying anything about Coach Bryant. But Nick Saban left this place a lot better. I mean, Alabama was coming off a Liberty Bowl win with Coach Bryant. Alabama's coming off a playoff appearance in the Rose Bowl. Alabama's set up for much more success right now thanks to Nick Saban. So I don't think it's as hard of a job, but I get it. But to my point, Dan Lanning, not taking it as this morning, good for him. He wants to stay where his feet are, build Oregon up in the new Big Ten. But as of this moment, looking a little bit like, unless something changed on this show while we're on this show, but Washington's Kalen DeBoer, Florida State's Mike Norvell look like the two main targets right now. Kalen DeBoer, see maybe doing an interview or something or a radio show in Seattle, so that'll be interesting. Josh Pate was mentioning there were some SUVs outside the Tuscaloosa airport. He may announce at the end of his show who the coach is going to be. Again, his show's going on right now, so I can't tell you that. Mike Norvell, I know, would be real interested in the Alabama job and would probably take it if offered. They have some NCAA stuff coming down the line. They're not going to get into that. Also, I still think Steve Sarkisian's a little bit more than this otherwise heard. Now, I talked to Jeff Banks today, the tight ends coach. He says no, but Steve Sarkisian, as far as I know, is still not signed his contract extension. And for anyone who knows Greg Byrne, the Alabama Athletics, the Alabama AD, usually the names leaked in his search are not, they don't ever end up being the names they are. Nobody knew it was going to be Nate Oates, the basketball coach at Alabama. Nobody knew it was going to be Nate Oates. It was going to be Thad Matta is what everybody thought. Nobody knew it was going to be Rob Vaughn until it was Rob Vaughn. Now, granted, this is his first time hiring a football coach at Alabama. And there's a lot more people involved in those hires, especially the football coaching hire at Alabama. There hadn't been one since 2007. But, yeah, I wouldn't always, and again, there's only so many candidates, but it's not always the name that's leaked. Just like everybody thought Dan Lanning, an Oregon TV station, reported that he was in Tuscaloosa last night when the guy was watching Jason Bourne with his family. So, but again, Greg Burns likes to keep things tight to the vest. Like he always says, unless you hear it coming from me, don't believe it. But if this was me, people have asked me all day who I would hire. My first call would have been to Steve Sarkisian. If he told me no, I'm calling Dan Lanning. And first of all, Steve Sarkisian, I think he's the best play caller in college football, right outside Lane Kiffin. We'll get to that in a minute. I think he's got Texas rolling. I know they're coming off a playoff loss to Washington, but he's got them rolling. I think he would do a phenomenal job coming back to Tuscaloosa. I think he's a no-brainer home run hire. I think Dan Lanning just a notch below that. Young cat, 37 years old, but he's got a structure. I think his chief of staff, Marshall Malco, would be a phenomenal hire as well. I think they would have a real good NIL plan. And I'm going to say this right now. I don't think Alabama's where it needs to be from an NIL perspective. I think right now Bama is just living off kind of the built by Bama motto. And that's fine when you got Nick Saban because you can talk about he's had more NFL first-round draft picks than he's had losses. I mean, so you can sell that. Built by Bama. You can look at the paychecks or the amount of or how much the contracts are the guys I've coached. And we can pay kids like we used to the old-fashioned way through cash. I may be saying too much more than I know, and I probably shouldn't be saying that, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Alabama's got to get the Yay Alabama collective's got to get more organized. They have to get more organized because if not, I think the names they're bringing in aren't. It's not. You can't just be. This is Alabama, guys. Come to us. It's like, no, that was Nick Saban's Alabama. Alabama's got to get caught up in that. the fans, the donors. We got to get caught up with that. I think that's first things first. Then if Dan Lanning tells me no like he did, I'm calling Lane Kiffin. I know that may not go over well in Tuscaloosa with him rubbing people the wrong way in Tuscaloosa on his way out, but the guy would win, just like he would have won at Texas A&M. And at some point, he may end up getting the Florida job next year if Billy Napier gets fired. But Lane Kiffin would be a winner in Tuscaloosa. People, I think sometimes when I say on Twitter that Lane Kiffin 100% is not going to get the job, I mean, I've talked to people close to it, talked to Lane Kiffin today. Just because I say Lane Kiffin isn't going to get the job doesn't mean I wouldn't hire him. I would hire Lane Kiffin. I mean, he comes with some baggage, but I think he's matured a lot since 2016. Now, when I say a lot, he had a long way to go, but I think he's matured. I think he would win big at Alabama. Now, it may be not the Alabama way, because sometimes I think anyone who's over 35 wouldn't really be for Lane Kiffin. Anyone under, like the Barstool age people that went to Alabama from anywhere from 2012 to later, would be for Lane Kiffin because he's a younger generation hipster. And at the end of the day, the guy does win. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it in my mind. Lane Kiffin would win big at Alabama if given the opportunity. And he would walk to Tuscaloosa. He'd walk on glass to Tuscaloosa from Oxford. I guarantee it. He wants the job. He wanted the Texas A&M job. He'll want the Florida job next year. I think Ole Miss is a little bit of a means to an end. He's done a phenomenal job. They're going to have a good team next year, a legit playoff contender team next year. And if Lane Kiffin told me no, which he wouldn't, I'd call Kalen DeBoer. Again, I'll say it. It may end up being Mike Norvell. I'm not a big Mike Norvell guy, but at the same time, before Alabama fans go nuts, you can't just create Nick Saban in a lab and plug him in. There's only one Nick Saban. There's only one no-brainer. I mean, Kirby Smart would be the next great thing, and I don't think you're getting him. So it's going to be tough to get mad at Greg Burns if it is Kalen DeBoer or Mike Norvell. I mean, Kalen DeBoer just played in the College Football National Championship game, guys. So all is not bad, and it is what it is. He kind of there's only so many candidates out there, and there's going to be a inevitable drop off. I see some people tweeting at me like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be Alabama fans are going to go back to irrelevant when Nick Saban." No, the program is set up for so much success right now. The guy's walking into a gold mine. It's just, can you handle that pressure? And the first year you missed the playoff inevitably, the 12-team playoff, it ain't going to go over well. But it is what it is. And also, to my point with Lane Kiffin's got the ego and confidence to go take over from Lane Kiffin and not give a crap. That's also what I kind of like about it. Again, when I mention Lane Kiffin, when I say he's not coming, that doesn't mean I don't want him to come. I would hire Lane Kiffin. Would do a phenomenal job. Guys like Austin Thomas would guide him, help with Alabama, the NIL collective, get that on the right path. Because Austin Thomas on a day-to-day basis works with the Grove Collective and Walker Jones. Lane Kiffin would do a phenomenal job, guys. But again, that's kind of where I would go. Sark would be my first call. Then I'd go Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin would not turn me down. Then I'd go Kalen DeBoer and then Mike Norvell at that point. If you wanted to give me a top five, it'd be Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer, and Mike Norvell. Those would be my top five. But I think it's going to be Kalen DeBoer, Mike Norvell, if you're going to make me bet. I think those are going to be your two. It sounded like Greg Byrne told the team, give him 72 hours when he met with the team yesterday. I expect Alabama to have a coach by tomorrow night. I don't know anything. I'm just saying. But whoever it is, you're going to accept it's not Nick Saban. Times have changed. This will be Alabama's first head coach who has a Twitter account. Nick Saban and I think Jimbo Fisher were the only SEC coaches that didn't have Twitter accounts. I mean, Twitter was invented, 2010, 2011? Nick Saban never had one. Nick Saban never had a Twitter account. So whoever Alabama hires, which right after we get through this segment right here, I'm going to check on Twitter to make sure I haven't missed anything. But the new coach is going to have a Twitter account. He's going to be active. He's going to be tweeting at people. So that'll be new for Alabama fans. He also, I think, will most likely be an offensive guy. And again, this is not going to be Nick Saban's Alabama. You have to be accepting of that. It can't be coming in, ruling with an iron fist. That's not the day and age we live in right now. And like I said, Alabama's got to get rolling. You got Auburn's got their stuff in line. They got their money in line. Sounds like the football program and the collective onward to victory have to get on the same page. But Ole Miss is rolling. So Alabama's got to get on the same page there. But recently they hadn't had to. Them and Georgia don't have to have some great collective plan because they can just kind of be like, hey, you want to come to Alabama or Georgia? We're a brand too. We help you just as much as you can help us. That's not the case at Alabama anymore. It's not. When Nick Saban retired yesterday, that stopped. That stopped. So Alabama's got to get a salary cap guy who has an understanding. And today was going to be my episode for Nick Saban retired. I was going to go over my NIL plan, how much I would pay a quarterback, how much I'd pay a running back, how much would I pay a wide receiver. I talked to a SEC personnel guy. He gave me his blueprint, and I was kind of going to go over it myself. It gave me a segment. Not going to do that today. I'll probably do that on Monday. Just kind of, I guess, previewing Monday's show for you a little bit. But Alabama's got to get rolling now. This isn't the old kids now want to know how much you pay me, how do you get me to the NFL? Facilities and championships, right, wrong, or indifferent, don't matter anymore. This isn't Nick Saban's Alabama anymore, guys. Alabama's got to get rolling. They got to get rolling. But Nick Saban, no longer the head football coach, retired at the University of Alabama. He'll be around, but there'll be a new sheriff in town, and there's going to be some bit of an adjustment. So that will be interesting to see what's going on. Before we get out of here, or not out of here, we got some other things to cover. Let's see if we got anything going. Anything going on here? I don't think I see anything. I'm on the Twitter sphere. If anybody lets me know, I'm gonna go to Alabama's football account and see. Nope, nothing as of yet. So we didn't break it. There's nothing going on right now in from an Alabama hiring standpoint. So moving on to some other coaching hires, Blake Baker, I know it's a little bit older news, coming back to LSU, was there in 2021, did a phenomenal job at Missouri the last 2 years, getting that defense revamped for Eli Drinkowitz. They're coming off a Cotton Bowl win over Ohio State. They also hired, I think, one of the better defensive line coaches from Texas in the country. He's a Nick Saban guy. Was with Nick Saban at LSU, definitely Alabama, kind of bounced around some NCAA stuff. But Bo Davis, phenomenal hire. Then I'm also hearing, be on the lookout for a potential group of 5 head coach to become an SEC defensive coordinator. We're getting to that in college football. These group of 5 jobs aren't as coveted as they used to be long term, because I think we're getting to the point now in college football where we're going to have some haves and have-nots. And one day I'm hoping Nick Saban is the commissioner. Like I said, we wasted the guy's talent as a football coach. Guy could have been great at whatever he wanted to be. I think he'll be a phenomenal college football commissioner at some point. He'll probably get into some broadcasting a little bit. But I think Nick Saban would back this up. We need to separate the haves and have-nots. I think that's what we're getting to. It's starting to become a bigger deal to be a SEC defensive coordinator than it is to be the head coach at Buffalo. And I may have just tipped my hat there. That's who it is. So don't be shocked if Missouri hires a acting current head coach in the Mach. Just going to leave that out there. That's where we're kind of at right now. Some other coaching, Alabama had some coaching vacancies along. Obviously hadn't filled them. Holman Wiggins went to Texas A&M. Nick Saban was interviewing candidates all the way up to when he decided to retire. But reading some of the comments here, Brandon Bono, appreciate you listening to the show, brother. Breaking news, hire just made. David Hopper, hey, just joining. So excuse me if you already talked about this, but what do you think about UT Sark going to Bama? Is that on? Am I missing something here? Hold on. Let's see if the phone's going to be doing this a little better. Hold up. Again, not seeing anything. So I think the chat's messing with me, guys. It's hinting at yeah. There's nothing going on right now, guys. David. All right. So no, I'm asking if he's a top candidate. Steve Sarkisian, he'd be my first caller, no brainer. Talked to their tight ends coach today, Jeff Banks. He said no. He didn't think it was going to happen. To answer your question, David. David, you're in Austin, right? So I appreciate you joining the show. We got listeners from all over the place, the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, Austin, Texas. But to answer your question, David, I don't see it happening. They're in the SEC now. Why would he take that job? Why, if you're Steve Sarkisian and he's loyal to Nick Saban, but you got all the resources you got at Alabama, at Texas. You're in the SEC. You're coming off a playoff experience. You can only go down at Alabama. You could be the guy at revive Texas to being back. You'd be the best coach at Texas since Mac Brown, easily. He already is. I personally wouldn't take that job, if I'm being honest with you. I personally would not take the job at Alabama if I was Steve Sarkisian. Now, we were talking about Greg Byrne earlier, Alabama's AD. If Greg Byrne went and hired Steve Sarkisian and he dropped his you-know-what on the table, best 3 hires in college athletics, hands down. Steve Sarkisian would be your football coach. Nate Oates would be your basketball coach. And a young cat named Rob Bond, who most people probably on the show don't know who he is, the new baseball coach who came over from Maryland. All 3 home runs. Unbelievable. Give Greg Byrne a raise if that were to happen. Will that happen? No. Because I think Steve Sarkisian knows. And like I said, talked to Jeff Banks today, special teams coach, tight ends coach. He acted like there was not much of a chance at all. Now, as of this morning, I think Texas's donors, boosters, were still going through that contract. I think that contract was still on Sarkisian's table, just like I think Kalen DeBoer has a contract at Washington still on his table. And remember, he just recently switched agents to Jimmy Sexton and CAA. So keep that in mind as well as these hires as well. Any other questions I will get to, but David, I appreciate the question out there in Austin. I know you Texas Longhorns fans are nervous, but I don't think you got anything to worry about, if I'm being honest. I think I would be shocked if Sark took the job, but man, he'd be my first call, and then I would be hiring Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning. Don't think you could go wrong. I think they're both a notch below Steve Sarkisian, but yeah, I don't see Sark coming. Obviously, Lanning not coming, and I think Lane Kiffin will walk on glass from Oxford to Tuscaloosa and below freezing weather to get there if they told him to. But obviously, if you're just joining the show, I told you that's not happening. I like Lane Kiffin. I think he'd win there big because I think he's got some good people around him to keep him in the right direction. I just don't know if some of the guys over 40 at Alabama are ready for that. Brandon Bono. Dabo has some big kahunas to follow behind Nick Saban. I agree. Just like I was talking about with Steve Sarkisian. It's just you don't really want to follow the greatest of all time. I get that. People are going to keep, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Ray Perkins failed right after Alabama. That's fair. But if you go back and do your research, Alabama was not in the same situation Coach Bryant's last few years. They were coming off a Liberty Bowl win in his last game. Whereas Alabama's coming off a playoff performance in the Rose Bowl, a top 5 finish in the country. They finished 5th in the country. So totally different. Nick Saban has all the resources ready. I bet whoever comes in keeps Ellis Ponder. They keep JT Summerford, all the guys, Brandy, everybody who works there. That's kind of been the core of the last 10 to 12 years. Yeah, will the new coach bring his own coaches, coordinators, stuff like that, maybe even recruiting people? Sure. But you're going to keep the core, I think, there. So, yeah, I mean, got some big you-know-whats to come take over, but also I think that's why Lane Kiffin would be great because he's got the ego to do it. And he's got the confidence, and he could give a you-know-what about it in a respectful manner to Coach Saban, but he could give a crap. He's going to go try to lay his own path, which I can respect that. But like I mentioned, LSU also has some new hires. Blake Baker coming back to LSU along with Bo Davis. Matt Hereford, former Alabama player, joined us just a minute ago talking about his time at Alabama as a player. Good interview. Go back to the beginning of the show and review that. But it is time. It's basketball season, guys. I know Nick Saban retired. Crazy I'm on air talking about this with Nick Saban. With Nick Saban retiring. Never really thought I'd do a show. Yeah, we all knew it was coming, but you didn't really. It's one of those things you didn't never really think it was going to happen until it happened. Everybody did a double take. I think this yesterday when Chris Lowe broke the news. But transitioning to basketball, sharing the screen with you here. Let me get it up for you. This week's action. Just reviewing Tuesday's action right off the bat. Alabama getting the 74-47 win over South Carolina at home. This game was a 1-point game at half. Alabama, led by Mark Sears, who's the leading candidate for the SEC Player of the Year right now. Him or probably Janiah Broome at Auburn. Alabama had a phenomenal second half. Went on a 10-0 run, locked down defensively. Ever since Alabama started switching on the screens defensively, they've been better. They obviously still miss Charles Bediako as a rim protector, but now they started switching the screens. They've gotten better. They're not going under screens anymore. So I think that's a big transition of them getting a big win. Alabama needed this because they got a massive game on Saturday night in Starkville at Mississippi State. We'll preview that one. Kentucky getting a big win, a little closer than people thought, getting a 13-point win against Missouri, 90-77 at Rupp on Tuesday. Kentucky struggled a little bit, but again, Kentucky's got probably one of the higher ceilings in the league when they're playing well. I thought Missouri fought their tail off in that one, but Kentucky just too much. LSU, totally different team with Tulane transfer and former LSU player Jalen Cook. He's stirring that drink right now. He's stirring that drink in Baton Rouge. LSU currently 2-0 in conference after getting a big upset win against Texas A&M last Saturday. They got a solid win against Vanderbilt, 77-69, big win. LSU goes to Auburn on Saturday, massive challenge. Speaking of Auburn getting a little rock fight win at home at Auburn at Neville Arena, 66-55 over a hungry Texas A&M team. Auburn didn't shoot great. I don't know if they used them all in their half-court shots pregame if you missed that video. But Auburn, I think one of the more complete, deep teams in this conference. Auburn doesn't have a weakness. Now, do some people – seen some people say it may be Bruce's best team. I don't know if I necessarily believe that because you don't have the upside of a Jabari Smith or Walker Kessler. But this is a deep team when you add in Chad Baker-Mazara, Katie Johnson, Aiden Holloway, Jalen Williams, Dylan Cardwell. I mean, are they dudes? No, but there's not much drop-off. And they defend so well and bust their tail. And when they shoot well, they're probably one of the harder teams to beat because they don't really beat themselves. But they didn't shoot well the other night, and A&M never does. A&M, it's almost like you're watching a rec team at times. They shoot the basketball and really get a lot of their points from just second chance points for the most part. Henry Coleman III gets a lot of second chance points. Maybe he's on a run there of 3 or 4 straight and ones. But Auburn at home always going to be tough to beat. Would be shocked if they lost any or really one game at home this year. But Auburn getting a sloppy 66-55 win against an A&M team that likes to muck it up. But Auburn hung in there. And then yesterday, we had 3 games. Tennessee at Mississippi State. Again, this league, it's hard. It goes about 10, 11 deep. At Mississippi State, at the hump. Mississippi State jumped out to a big early lead. But they end up getting the 77-72 win. Kind of blew it late. Tennessee had a chance. Tolu Smith gets the and one. Tennessee missed a shot, had a shot at the end. Mississippi State, massive win because they got Alabama on Saturday. Then they go to Rupp. They would have started off 0-2 after losing at South Carolina to open up conference play on Saturday. That would have been tough for Chris Jans and the boys. They needed that win. They got it. Massive win, massive opportunity to be 2-1 heading to Rupp if they could beat Alabama at home on Saturday. Tennessee is what it is. When Tennessee still, they defend well. Zakai Ziegler's coming back to his own, getting Vescovy comfortable. Dalton Connect still leading them the way, still leading them offensively. But when Tennessee doesn't shoot well, they can be beat. And they didn't really start coming on until the second half. Mississippi State getting a massive win at the hump. Georgia, Mike White and the boys starting 2-0 in conference, under the radar, doing a good job. He's got some good opportunities coming up where they could get some big wins and get back into that bubble conversation in his second season at Georgia. But they get the 76-66 win over Eric Musselman and the boys. Eric Musselman, again, off to a rough start in conference play. Excuse me for a minute. Had to get a sip of water there. But Eric Musselman struggling right off the bat. Again, I don't know how you consistently just struggle as much as Eric Musselman does in conference play right off the bat. He does every case, and this year it's going to bite him in the butt. I mean, they're over 100 in net ranking. I said it on Twitter last night. I'm off the Arkansas bandwagon. They're not turning it around. Cut this out. Any Arkansas fan out there that wants to, Arkansas will not be an NCAA tournament team this year. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel very confident in saying they will not be, though. They will not be an NCAA tournament team this year. There's just too much to overcome. I just don't see it. They got a 10-point loss on the road to a solid Georgia team, not great. But Arkansas is an effort thing. There's just not a lot of buy-in from Eric Musselman's team this year. It's going to be tough. They got a trip to Florida this week, a battle of 0-2 teams. Both need it. It's at Florida. And speaking of the Gators, took a loss at the Pavilion last night to Ole Miss. Ole Miss put up a triple spot, 103-85 win for the Rebels. They're 2-0 in conference. Jamarian Sharp, it was like Dikembe Mutombo last night. What did he end up having? Over 5 blocks? It was unbelievable. It was a block party. I think Florida's still a solid team. I'm much more confident in Florida turning around as an 0-2 team right now than I am Arkansas. But big opportunity for Florida. They needed it home against an Arkansas team reeling. Somebody's got to get a win. But how about Ole Miss? Massive win. Should start 3-0. They get Vandy coming to Oxford this weekend, early start at noon. We'll preview that one. But again, man, Chris Beard, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you better get out and watch his team. He's not going to be at Ole Miss long. Top 5 coach in college basketball. Big Chris Beard fan. I'm one of the ones, even when he got fired at Texas and the Ole Miss job came open after Kermit Davis got fired, I said, Ole Miss, you would be stupid not to go hire him. A lot of people be like, oh, do you want to go get a wife beater or whatever? I might get into that stuff. He's a good basketball coach. The guy's won everywhere he's been. Arkansas, Little Rock, Texas Tech, Texas. She dropped the charges. I mean, the guy's a fantastic basketball coach. Ole Miss is going to have him for 2 or 3 years, and he's going to go to a blue blood. He's got Ole Miss 2-0 in conference. 2-0, probably going to be 3-0 after Saturday. Rebels with a big win. I thought after watching it, that was the Ole Miss's best game of the season. It was their best game, most complete game of the season, in a 103-85 win over Florida. Let's go to the SEC standings before we preview Saturday's matchup. Again, handful, 4 2-0 teams. Got Auburn at 2-0, Kentucky 2-0, Georgia 2-0, and Alabama 2-0, and LSU 2-0. Then you got Ole Miss coming in at Ole Miss 1-1, took the loss to Tennessee. I misspoke just a minute ago. Took a big loss to Tennessee, 1-1. Sorry, we didn't do a show on Monday because I was at the AFCA coaches convention. Got a lot of good scoop, by the way. Quick U set up there selling us our recruiting database products. I was there in Nashville setting that up, so I didn't do a show on Monday. But Ole Miss coming in 1-1, South Carolina 1-1, Mississippi State 1-1, Tennessee 1-1, Florida and Arkansas 0-2, A&M is in the 0-2 party, Missouri 0-2, and Vanderbilt 0-2. So we got a big top-heavy group at 2-0, pretty middle group there, 4 teams at 1-1, and we got 5 guys sitting at 0-2 in the league as we head into really the second week of conference play with let's go to the schedule and preview this weekend's action in the conference. Let's go to it right now. There we go. So starting off into the 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone, Tennessee at Georgia. Tennessee coming in 1-1, Georgia 2-0 on ESPN2. Massive opportunity for Georgia. They could get this quad 1 win at home. It would be big for Mike White and them. Sitting pretty solid right now, but they're going to continue to get some wins right now. Let's look up what Ken Palm has in this one. Ken Palm's got Tennessee with a 75% chance of winning this one. I like Tennessee to bounce back and get a win. Tennessee's average game should get a win instead. I think Georgia's solid, but I like Tennessee to get a bounce-back win. Then Vanderbilt at Ole Miss on the SEC Network at noon Central Standard Time Zone. Ole Miss with an 85% chance to win, according to Ken Palm. The Rebels are going to get to 2-1. They got to have this one. This would be a rough loss for Ole Miss here. Jerry Stackhouse and the team's reeling. They played Alabama close last Saturday, but a road trip to the Pavilion could be a little sleepy early. I think Ole Miss does get this one. Ole Miss 2-1 before they go on that trip to at LSU and they get Auburn. Then Kentucky at Texas A&M, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone for the Cats against the Aggies on ESPN. Right now, Ken Palm has Kentucky with a 51% chance winning. A&M needs this one. Crazy to say against the top 6 team in the country. They need it, but it's at home. They're 0-2 right now with a rough loss to LSU to start conference play. Then the loss, they could have got a big win at Auburn, but they took the loss, so they're 0-2. I just don't trust A&M right now. Not a great offensive team. If they're not getting the free throw line, they're going to struggle. They go as far as Wade Taylor takes them, and I think Kentucky's going to have a good game plan here. I like Kentucky. I'm surprised that the winning percentage by Ken Palm is not higher. Give me Kentucky on the road here. I think A&M is going to drop to 0-3 right now. They're really struggling. Then you got a 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone tip, South Carolina at Missouri on the SEC Network. Right now, Ken Palm is at 50-50. I think with Missouri winning this game on the road, I think a 51% chance for Missouri to – I think they have a 1-point win for Missouri when I was looking at it earlier, but a 50-50 shot here. Missouri's 0-2 as well with losses to Georgia and Kentucky. Both teams need this. South Carolina feel a lot better about themselves. They were 2-1 in their first 3. Missouri needs to get off the 0-2 bandwagon here. Give me South Carolina, but I don't feel great about it. Kind of agree with Kim Palmer here. It's a 50-50 game, but I think Lamont Paris has this team better. From top to bottom, I like the South Carolina roster with Michie Johnson and BJ Mack. I think they get it done in a very close matchup. I agree with Kim Palm there. 3 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone. Tip-off Arkansas at Florida, the O'Connell Center on ESPN. A must-win for both these teams. This is a top 2 or 3 matchup, not obviously record-wise here. Florida, a bubble team. Arkansas not in that conversation. Both need it, though. They both come in 0-2. Arkansas with the historic loss to Auburn, biggest loss in Bud Walton Arena history, 30-point loss to Auburn last Saturday. Then they lost a double-digit loss to Georgia on the road. So Arkansas's lost both conference games double digits. Not feeling good about Arkansas right now. I'm on record saying this could be the worst. Arkansas is not going to make the tournament. This is Eric Musselman's worst team. Florida, I think, a little better than the record says. Could have beat Kentucky at home last Saturday. I predicted they would, but I was pretty impressed with them. And then they went and took a loss at Ole Miss. Didn't look as great. Florida's going to get this. I can't pick Arkansas. Let's see what Kim Palm's got it at. Kim Palm's got Florida with a 74% chance of winning this one, and I agree. Until otherwise, can't be on the Arkansas bandwagon. Lock me in. Arkansas is done. Throw in the towel. Apollo Creed style. Throw in the towel on Arkansas. Come back to me later. I'm off the must bus. Throw in the towel. But Arkansas will be 0-3 after Saturday. Then a 5 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone tip. LSU at Auburn. Battle 2-0 teams in the SEC. Like I said, Jalen Cook, once the NCAA approved or he was eligible to play, he's been stirring that drink. He's the straw that's stirring the drink for him. The former LSU player for Will Wade transferred to Tulane, then transferred back this year. I mean, he's been a difference. They got a big road win at Texas A&M, beat Vanderbilt. But this is a different test. They're going to the toughest arena, toughest environment in the SEC. I still like Auburn to get this done. Auburn moving to 3-0. I mean, Kim Palm has this as a 92% chance of Auburn winning. I agree. Would be shocked if Auburn lost this game. So I got Auburn. And then the best matchup of the night. A big matchup, big NCAA tournament means here. Quad 1 opportunity for both teams. 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone tip. Alabama at Mississippi State on the SEC Network. Ken Palm currently has Alabama with a 55% chance of winning it. They have them winning the game by 2, I believe, 74-72. We should see Alabama matches up in this one. Is Muhammad Wagee back? Alabama starting center. I mean, I think Nick Pringle played his best game of his Alabama career. Muhammad Diabate, true freshman, came in, played great. You're going to have some – Alabama's going to have to get ready. I mean, Tolu Smith looks like he's rocking and rolling. This is a big physical team that gave Alabama some problems last year. They played 3 times last year. First 2 games in Starkville, Alabama won by double digits, but it was close. Second one, Alabama easily could have lost at Coleman. Mississippi State was up predominantly or majority of that game. Then Alabama got after Mississippi State, winning by 40 in the SEC tournament. This is one of those matchups. If Alabama shoots well, they could win this game running away. As crazy as that sounds. They proved it in the SEC tournament last year. If they're missing shots, Mississippi State's got the front court advantage with rebounding and second chance buckets. It could hurt Alabama. Mississippi State, again, with a very tough schedule right off the bat. At South Carolina, they lost. They beat Tennessee. Then they play Alabama. Then midweek, they go at Kentucky. So if they're 2-1 rolling into Rupp Arena and they're 2-2 after their first 4, they'd be fired up for that. So another big opportunity for Chris Jans and this team to get a quad 1 win against Alabama. If I'm making a prediction here, I'll probably go Mississippi State at home. I don't think it's a great matchup. Alabama's struggled some with some more physical teams, but Alabama's seen the best of the best from the bigs this year. I mean, you got Zach Edey they faced, Ballo in Arizona, Kalkbrenner. I know he got hurt in the first half when they played Creighton, but still, Alabama's seen their fair share of bigs. They're not going to be overwhelmed with Tolu Smith. I mean, they've seen him last year as well. They play him twice a year, every year. But I think Mississippi State at home gets this one. And I think Alabama probably gets it when they go back to Tuscaloosa. But it's an interesting matchup here. I lean Mississippi State, which is fine, because Alabama gets Missouri after this. If Alabama could start their first 4 games 3-1, they would take that before that tough stretch at Tennessee and then getting Auburn at home. But I think that's the way it shakes out the SEC this weekend. Agree similar with Kim Palm. Only one I disagree with for him, I would say with him, I would say probably Kentucky a little more than he does against Texas A&M. I think he's got South Carolina right. It's kind of a coin flip, South Carolina, Missouri. I like Florida until Arkansas proves it. I don't like this team. Totally off that bandwagon. Auburn, I think would have to just play really. They're not going to lose to LSU at Auburn. That's just not going to happen. Auburn can play an average game and still win that game. And then Alabama, Mississippi State, total coin flip, but I would lean Mississippi State due to it being at Humphrey Coliseum, the Hump. But that is the SEC matchups as we stand right now, heading into I'm calling it the second week. I know it's a Saturday, but this is game 3 because I remember the SEC tipped off last Saturday in their week 1 matchup. But it's kind of a longer episode. I can't wait to get on social media right now, see what I've missed from the Alabama coaching search. I talked about Nick Saban. We wasted his talent as a football coach. Could have been the president of the United States. Should be the future commissioner of college football. Never thought I'd be doing a show of talking about Nick Saban's retirement. I remember where I was January 3rd, 2007, sneaking out of my junior high school, I think religion class, to go watch him land in Tuscaloosa. Later, I went to that Sugar Bowl game, LSU Notre Dame. You could tell the tides were turning. LSU fans were worried. Their guy left them to go to Miami. He's the big rival, Alabama. You could sense it. Now, we're talking January 11th. He retired January 10th. Crazy. 17 years later. If anyone tells you they saw the success he had in 17 seasons, they're crazy. Crazy. He's the GOAT. Greatest of all time. We brought in Matt Hereford, former Alabama football player, talking about his time, what he took with him from Nick Saban. Fantastic interview. I encourage you to go back and take a look at it. And then we talked SEC basketball, reviewed the week that was on Tuesday and Wednesday, reviewed the standings, and previewed the 7 matchups upcoming this weekend. Guys, it's rocking and rolling. Remember, Mach 10 Sports. I worked in college football for 10 years. I got a pretty good grasp on the SEC. We cover football, basketball, and baseball. Go follow us on YouTube. Like, subscribe. It's free. Go review. Tell me how good of a job. Go tell me how bad of a crappy a job I'm doing. Tell me what you want to hear, what interviews you want. In fact, I got a good pulse of people we could get on here. We're on every podcast avenue you could get on. Amazon, Apple, Spotify, any of it. Appreciate you frequent listeners. If you follow me at Mach 10 Sports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, we're on Twitter Live, Facebook Live, all of it. We're back at the home court. As you can see behind us here, we were at the in-laws for a week and a half, 2 weeks, but we're back at home, guys. Can't wait to continue to bring the action for this 2024 season. Baseball is right around the corner in February. Can't wait to bring you that action as well. But I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Mach 10 Sports. You have a fantastic evening.